Hello, everyone. I am really grateful to be here and excited to be sharing with you. I guess if I want you to take anything away from this, I just want you to think about how it is that we can change the way that we make change. This poem is called Field Notes or The Promise. Some of the best learning I've ever done is when I was actually teaching. So I hope that this poem inspires you the way that all of my students and people around the world have inspired me. Thank you. 14 years displaced. The elder says, a meant-to-be makeshift camp, now home and birthplace to many. In the heart of Darfur, we talk about the peace that wouldn't come, about the stolen time and broken promises, about the restless world still trying to erase us. I ask about the change we want to make together, and the sheikh says, you know, once they came with sandwiches and all we really wanted were pens. In Nepal, I'm surrounded by a group of 3-year-olds, a world and 2 separate languages between us. I laugh, they laugh. I speak, they giggle, so I put away the notes that I'd prepared and teach a rhythm workshop instead. Actions speak louder than the words that we couldn't share. They learned the beats so quickly, their teachers were astounded, but the students were more than that. Bursting with joy at the new skill that they had gained, they begin to innovate, creating new beats and sound by the sheer artistry and motivation of their own 3-year-old minds. The lesson evolving at the hands of every student. When you give a person knowledge, they will make it their own. In South Africa, a young boy comes to me after the lesson. He says, I lost my cousin a bit ago, and your words made me feel better about that. He takes the beads from his neck and gifts them to me. He says, I want you to have this. In the cutting and honest words of a child, he humbles me and nearly breaks me. I try to hide the tears that choke up my voice. As he smiles, I try to return that innocent smile, give a hug and thanks. Warm words of departure, the beads of resting, a reminder, an anchor, tethering me to a boy who was a stranger just an hour before. To learn is to heal, and I'm the one who learned the most that day. In Jordan, in the camps, I'm giving a group of young children their first lesson in poetry, like my teacher, Mrs. Weinstein, did for me years ago, more than a decade earlier. As the lesson progresses, they create their first words of a new poem. The youngest girl in the room writes, رسالة من حضن ماما إلى بابا تعود الأيام الحلوة والجميلة.
A letter from my mom to my dad. Our beautiful moments return to us.
Letter from my mother's arms to my father. May the good and beautiful days come back between us. Can you imagine the promise? The heart and the talent and the minds and the untapped potential of an entire generation nearly lost to poverty, to war, to conflict and sickness. Can you imagine the promise? In our reality, the students are the true benefactors, and we, the beneficiaries. This world, an open classroom. Our lives, its books, and every lesson, a small step closer to true equality. Our pens, our time, twin gifts of hope and opportunity. I'm reminded of my first lessons in writing. My mom placed the chalk in my 3-year-old hands and said, now your turn. She had cleared all the furniture in our high-rise in Sana'a, emptied an entire wall for me to write on the cement wall. She effectively removed every barrier between me and education, and the sharp edges of the letter Alif are still burned in my mind as if I were casting a spell, conjuring meaning. Learning to read was the closest thing to magic I knew back then, and learning still is every single day. What my mother gave me was a gift and the promise that millions of parents try to give their children every single day, but no one can do it alone. The next Einstein is a girl in Darfur or India. The next Newton, a child in Afghanistan, Indonesia. The next Oprah takes the bus in Philadelphia, Vietnam. The next Marie Curie wakes for breakfast in Yemen. Can you hear them? We must be there for them. Can you hear me? We will be here for you. Out there is a world ready for the taking by young and heartbreakingly hungry minds, but hungry bodies can't support the knowledge that our minds yearn for. It is in our nature to be voracious learners, and it is our duty as adults to satiate that voracity in children so they may learn, so they may grow, so they may live. The best of us must learn to nourish the mind, body, and soul, building the school to learn, the home to rest, and the world to thrive around it. The generosity I've seen, the responsibility I've learned, whether it's through built on or learning just how much it is that we truly care. It is infinite, but our empathy becomes the limiting factor. If we learn to unlock that empathy, truly unlock it, our world will become limitless. This is education, sustainability, and change all wrapped in one. The death of potential is entirely preventable. It is a side effect of a world that doesn't value every life as equal. It rides in on literal death and slowly cauterizes the life out of every nation, scorching each land of opportunity wherever it may be. Out of the rubble we built on, out of the ashes we cherish life, placing the keys of a fully realized world in the hand of every single child, in the hand of the people themselves as we grow to become the change we wish for as children, to solve the problem we struggled for from the outset of our lives. If I could teach them all, I would. If I could reach them all, I'd spend every waking moment. If I could give all that I am and all that I have, I wouldn't hesitate. Where I come from, we have a saying, Eid la-Eid, tajda' ba'id. Hand to hand, and we'll go far. So take my hand, take my promise, come with me. The future is waiting. Thank you.